All right, ready.
Okay, so Leta, long time no hear, no talk. How are you?
I'm fine, Jacob. How are you?
I'm good. I have my vape, and I poured a glass of Jack because I wasn't sure what the conversation was going to be today, and I wanted to be prepared. Last time I did one of these, I was caught off guard, and I wished I had Jack. So I'm good to go
Well,
now.
I wouldn't do that to you, but
So
that's good. I inspire such fear that you need Jack for to bolster you. That's pretty funny.
it's true. So what are we talking about?
Well, I've been thinking about all the blogs you've done here in the last, I don't know, 6 months, how long you've been doing this. And you've had some really good topics. So I thought what we'd just see, probably I'd like to keep it what we agree on,
Why
although
don't
you
you want
never
to
know.
fight? You don't want to fight?
Well, I'm going to cop out that I'm a victim here because of my eye surgery. So
Uh,
you're still a little blurry. Actually, it's interesting. My eye is really good. It sees color really well in one eye, but it's still just a little blurry.
well, that's
So,
probably a good thing because I
so
don't do well with picture and video. So okay. So
anyway, I can't. Go ahead.
which one of the blogs stood out to you that you want to talk about?
Well, the last one for sure on the homelessness, you really got me on that because sometimes I think we're opposed on things, and yet I found me agreeing with you and just wondering together. I mean, what do we see happening here? Because it's a mess.
Well, I mean, like I said, I mean, after I'd posted that, we talked a little bit, and like I said, I mean, I think that um, that's one of the biggest problems when you break up the two sides of Republicans and Democrats and stuff like that, where you say liberal, conservative. It's like both sides acknowledge that there's a problem. It's the approach, the solution that people tend to argue over. And I wrote that blog specifically because I saw something online. Somebody had made a comment and kind of rubbed me wrong. And I was like, you know what? That's just the wrong attitude. And I just thought I'd address it. And I admittedly tailored that blog more towards the conservative mindset because you have I mean, like I said, if you go to the extreme on either side, you're going to have problems. I mean, you're going to have fanaticism on either side, and that's all ego-based, self-important stuff that goes on either side. But if you look at it and you're looking at the root cause of the problems, I mean, it affects everybody. I mean, it's not like it just affects Republicans or it just affects Democrats. I mean, it kind of affects everybody. So um, addressing the attitude of, who are you, when you come across people like that, because especially from the conservative side, I see a lot of people that um, they're proud of their job, they're proud of where they work, they're proud of the money they make, the success they made, and that's great. I don't have a problem with that at all. But like the example I gave in that blog, that lady um, that lady had a life event take place that affected her in such a way that mentally she couldn't cope. She just couldn't cope. And I didn't mention it in the blog, and I thought about that later. But I mean, her husband left her. She lost her house after her son died. I mean, she just could not get past the death of that. And so you think about that, and you think of all these people that you know they look at homelessness as if it's this or it's that. It's kind of I'm never going to fall into that trap because I would never. They equate it to being bad with money or something along those lines, and sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes it has nothing to do with that. Sometimes it's a mental health issue. Sometimes it's a voluntary choice thing where you simply say I'm done, and you flip a switch and you walk away from everything, or you dive into drugs or alcohol, and you just end up, that's where you are. And there's got to be some compassion there towards that. And so you look at the conservative side, and they go to church and they talk about, they listen to sermons on Job, you know, and all the stuff that, I don't know if you know about Job, but I mean, Job in the
I
Bible, all
don't.
this,
That's a,
huh? What?
that's okay. I don't, but that's, I'm listening.
Well, Job was a guy in the Bible that literally lost 14 kids, lost all of his livestock. Uh, his wife was taken from him. I mean, he faced total devastation. And then, you know, as he's, you know, weeping and crying out to God, going, what's happening to me? His friends actually showed up and criticized him and said it was a lack of faith, because he had a lack of faith. All this stuff happened. I mean, it was insane. It was absolutely insane. And
Sure.
so you go to church, or you attend services, and you listen to pastors that will talk about, you know, the patience of Job, and how we should, when we consider the negative things in our life, look what God did in Job's life, because God restored everything Job lost. I mean, he did. He ended up, you know, having more kids and brought his wife back in his lifestyle and stuff. But I mean, he went through a traumatic time there. And so for people to sit there in church and read about Job, you know, they're reading about Job, and it's almost like they don't grasp it. It's like, do you understand what that means? I mean, for me, when I think about what happened to Job, if I lost my kids and my life was devastated to that depth, I can totally relate to what that lady did outside that gas station. I can totally relate. She totally, you know, became an alcoholic and lost everything over it. And I get it. You know, I watched a movie with my mom a couple weeks back called The Patriot. Have you seen that movie?
You know, I haven't, and I should see it.
Oh, it's a great movie. It's a great movie. But one of the scenes in the movie is, you know, here you've got these guys that have been fighting against the British Army. They were part of the militia. The British Army figured out where their camp was, not only raided their camp, but then found out, you know, a list of names of all the guys that were part of the army. And so they went around and they started slaughtering all their families. And so these guys show up and they come to their house, and their house is devastated, and their wives and children are killed. They're dead. And this one guy literally, I mean, he breaks down. I mean, he's just absolutely in agony. And he pulls out his pistol, and he stands up and he turns around, looks at everybody, and puts a gun to his head and pulls the trigger. I can get that. That makes sense to me, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And there is no amount. I mean, so you have these people that go to church, and they're all, you know, praising Job. It's like, man, do you really understand what Job went through? Because the fact that Job didn't eat a bullet is pretty amazing in and of itself, you know.
And I would, seeing some of the people that I see and just hearing you describe that, I'm amazed that the people do stick it out. Some of those, I can't imagine what it's like to go through a winter here outside. I just cringe.
Right.
But that's what struck me about your post. I just, you had a compassion there that I really wanted to hear more and tap into some more. That really struck me.
Well, like I said, I mean, it's not that. I think the argument boils down to, you know, you said it's not that people don't recognize or see that there's a problem. The conflict comes when it comes to addressing the problem. I mean, giving those people money for the sake of giving them money, you know, especially on a routine basis, doesn't necessarily help. You know, it doesn't necessarily help. You know, I think we need more mental health services available in our communities. I think it needs to be more. There just needs to be more mental health services, and I think faith-based programs really do a lot. I mean, they do a lot, and people get hung up on the, you know, the religion aspect of it, and so a lot of times there's a conflict there. But it's like, if you get past that, I mean, these faith-based programs, I mean, they're out there every day, every week, every month, giving food boxes, you know, giving rides, providing clothes. I mean, they're doing it all the time on a routine basis, and it can't be ignored. It just can't. And we need more of that.
And you can't. And you know, I so see the value in that. And you know what I think, when I think about it like that, these people are looking for family. That's why some of them don't have family. And, I know that when we talked the other day, we were talking about some people that we probably knew together from school,
Yeah.
me and my job, and you as classmates. And it's heartbreaking. And yet when you see the background, I was more privy to background maybe than you were, to see how these kids came up. It's no surprise if they're where they are. And how do you get around that? You can't take them from their parents usually, and would you want to do that? I mean, which is worse? So it does seem. Go ahead.
A lot of times they've grown up in families that were filled with dysfunction, and so and they're not necessarily privy to it. I mean, that's the thing too. It's like that is their normal. So I mean, they grew up that way. It's like this is their normal, and they don't understand the extent of what it is. And I think a lot of times, especially in a circumstance like that, unless you have somebody that is seeking, that has been exposed to that or is seeking out that information, they kind of go through life and they don't really understand why things are the way they are or why they do what they do, and they just kind of end up. And and I think that, I mean, that's just another prime example. I mean, even our educational system. I mean, we could start combating homelessness in our educational system. I mean, it could start there.
Yes.
I mean, it could start there, and we could start talking about, childhood trauma, and we could start talking about family dynamics. The arguments when it comes to family dynamics kills me. I mean, it just frustrates me. It's not like we don't have a basic format to go off of, I mean, we could say, hey, it's not a discount just because your family didn't turn out that way, that, but it's definitely a good way to do things. So.
And I've seen that that's the one thing you and I do share in common. We might have different outlooks and different perspectives as from liberal to conservative, but we've both been raised with solid family values, I do believe, and we share that.
Right.
And I think that's why I'm drawn to your other stories. So from jumping from homelessness to, I think of all the blogs you did, that I liked the best was your hunting story with your children. You made me cry on that one.
That was the Factory Reset, I think it was. Factory Reset.
I don't remember the name. But it was probably, it touched me the most.
Yeah.
We have a common. That's our commonality.
That's a hard thing to describe to people too, because like I said, you here we have so many different external pressures. So many different external things that we have pulling at us. And when you get up in the woods, and you get far enough up into the woods, your only thing that you're looking for is, a place to sleep, food, and something to drink, and just basic survival. And, some of the places that I've gone and I've taken my kids, I mean, you get back in there and, nobody's going to find you. As a matter of fact, one year we went up there and somebody was lost, and they had about 50 sheriff's officers up there looking for him, and all, tromping through. And, they asked us, any idea of where, what's the routine stuff. We gave them a few holes that the guy could possibly be in, but, you get back up in there far enough. And I mean, I've been up there, a couple of years where I wasn't sure I was going to make it out. So, but I mean, once you're in a situation like that and you make it and you survive, I mean, you come back here, everything doesn't seem like that big of a deal.
It's true. It's true.
So.
I think that was, you and I have the love of nature and whatnot, but we also have the background. I try to, since most people that know us know that we have our differences, I try to focus lately on our similarities.
Well, we haven't fought in a long time, and frankly, I'm a little disappointed because I was kind of gearing up for. I was up for a fight today.
Well, what do you want to fight about?
What do I want to fight?
Huh? But we know there's several.
Okay, well, let's talk about the George Floyd.
Okay.
So how do you feel about the verdict?
I think the verdict, all I ever had to see was the 9 minutes of the video or whatever it was. It wasn't 9 minutes at the time to know what I thought. So yes,
What did you,
absolutely think he's guilty.
guilty of all three charges or?
Okay, it's funny. Terry and I were talking about that just yesterday. And I may change my mind later because I haven't given it a lot of thought, but I honestly thought the jury would come back with a guilty verdict, but I thought it would be the middle charge, which was the middle one, not the second degree murder, the manslaughter. It was manslaughter, I think, and anyway, it was the middle charge, and I thought that would be the only charge. I didn't think it would be all three. And I don't really know. I would have to reevaluate. To be honest, I did not watch the trial. I'm trying to move away from that part of the agitation in my life of politics and so forth. But I did see, of course, last year was there for the entire, the riots and all that, and protests and riots. Let me rephrase that. Big difference.
Well, this is disappointing because I thought he was guilty too. I mean, I've
I was prepared for you to fight me.
I was hoping for a fight. So anyway, but no, I mean, I've gone against some conservative folks on that because, they're like, well, George Floyd was full of, fentanyl and all this other stuff. He was going to die of a drug overdose anyway. And it's like, you know what, that's all fine and dandy. But if somebody's suffering from a drug overdose, their breathing is being altered or restricted due to the reaction to the drug, and you were to apply pressure, any pressure to the neck, and impede that airway further, you would be contributing to the death that was going to occur anyway. No different if it was an 80-year-old woman in a nursing home on a breathing machine and you sat on her chest. You could make the argument, you could say, well, she was old, she was going to die anyway, but sitting on her chest made that sooner. So he was, in my mind, guilty of involuntary murder. I mean, I don't think it was premeditated. I don't think it was planned.
Oh, I don't either.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like he was, out to kill somebody that day. I think he was just incredibly dumb and arrogant and didn't bother to check and see if the guy had any vitals. It's like, you're sitting there long enough, the guy's not moving, you might want to check. So from that aspect, I agreed with the involuntary second degree murder charge. I did not agree with the other two charges. I don't see how they could have put those other charges on him, especially one that questioned his mental capability. It's like, well, has there been a psych evaluation done? If there hasn't, then how do you make that determination for that, to give that verdict on that last charge? So I didn't understand that, but that's a frustrating thing because apparently we agree on that too. So.
Right. And we do that's kind of, it actually doesn't surprise me knowing you, just, I wasn't sure to what degree we might agree or disagree. So let's see, what else is there then? If we're going to go this route, I can see we're both.
Pick something good, damn it.
Well, let's see. That one was obvious. Oh, I know, because I actually happened to see one of your posts. I don't get notified as to when you post something, and I know that you're careful these days of your posts. But anyway, you did post something about you're going to get the COVID shot.
Oh yeah, I'm going to get the COVID shot.
Well, I'm glad to hear it.
Well,
I too was under the impression you were not for that.
Well, yeah, and see, that's it kind of cracks me up because people don't bother to ask me anything. I mean, it's like, I post stuff on Facebook. There's very few people that actually say, what's your opinion on this or what do you think? And I think that's odd. They just assume that, some of the memes and stuff that I post, I'm or some of the links that I'm in favor or against certain things. And I think it's fascinating because a lot of times I'm posting stuff to either A, I think it's funny, or B, I think it's good for conversation. It's not necessarily that I agree with it or disagree with it. I just think that this is a good conversation piece. So I'll put it up and run a thread. But, and I've been known to play the devil's advocate. But as far as the shot's concerned, I mean, I'm absolutely in support of people taking Trump's shot. I think that, Trump is the one that came out with the shot before the end of the year, like he said he would. And I am all in favor of everybody supporting Donald Trump and his vaccination program. So, yeah.
I almost blinked when you said that. I almost didn't catch that.
Did you get your shot? Did you get the Trump shot?
I have both of my COVID shots that came from the medical science. Thank you very much. While Trump was claiming it was a hoax.
No. Trump said a vaccine was going to be available for the end of the year, and we had 2 before the end of last year. You can't deny that.
I don't deny that, and I will give him credit. I will give him credit. He apparently put enough funds to see that it was done.
Yep.
But that's where it stops.
And he's the one that put the pressure on the FDA to get it approved. So, I mean, you can sit there all day long, but the only thing Biden has done, the only thing he has done is simply follow Trump's distribution process. That's it. That's all he's done. The development of those vaccines are 100% Trump.
What distribution practices are we talking about?
Well, right now we can call up local pharmacies, schedule an appointment, and go get our vaccine.
Actually, I couldn't here just a couple months ago. I ended up going to the casino down in Seven Feathers.
Right, because you were on a list, right?
I couldn't even get into the college. Terry got his easily, but I couldn't get mine. But anyway, no, I'm not buying the distribution. Nope.
So all I'm saying is I'm in favor of people taking the Trump vaccine. That's all I'm saying. I'm absolutely in favor of that. I think it's a good thing.
Well, I'm glad to hear it.
Now my personal motivation behind it has nothing to do with fear of COVID, has nothing to do with wanting to protect my fellow man. You know, I'm not that benevolent. Has nothing to, I'm not afraid of whatever's in the vaccine. I'm not afraid of 5G or whatever. My motivation behind taking that vaccine is 100% the ability to travel. That's it. I want to be able to travel internationally. That is my own, and I know that that's going to become an issue, and I don't want to be stopped at the gate. Yep. It's as simple as that.
I think that's reasonable.
Outside of that, I have no motivation.
So do you think it's foolish right now that everybody is still wearing masks?
I don't care either way. I mean, I think it's foolish to argue about whether or not somebody should wear a mask. I mean, truthfully, I've looked at the science when it comes to masks, and one of the reasons why I've repeatedly said over and over and over again, anytime I see people arguing about masks, you know, the very first thing I bring up is mask material matters. Mask material matters. If you're going to make an argument about wearing a mask, then, you know, simply telling somebody anything you put on your face helps is bullshit, because that's not what the science says at all. Mask material matters. So if you're going to make the argument about wearing a mask, then you better be pretty damn specific, because we're talking about viruses that are absolutely microscopic, and they will move through mask material, certain materials, just as easily as a mosquito through a chain link fence. And there's no impediment. There's no impediment there at all. And you know, you hear these people and they're like, yeah, but it catches the big droplets. It catches the mucus. You know, how many times do you see people hacking mucus on each other? That's not what they're doing. A lot of times when people cough, they're coughing into their hand or their arm, or a rag. That's where the mucus goes. Okay. But we're talking about microscopic viruses that travel through breathing and through talking and through singing and through stuff that you can't see. It's not visible to the naked eye. Those type of viruses have to, there's certain material that stops that and some that doesn't. So you see these people walking around with face coverings. They can walk into the store. They've got these mask requirements that are insane, because they're saying if you walk into a store, you have something to cover your face. You have people walking in stores with bandanas. They're not doing anything with a bandana. You're not doing anything with a little neck thing that pulls up on your face. Give me a break. Nope. So if you're gonna pose the argument of wearing a mask, then be fucking specific about it. I mean, let's be real about it here. Okay. You want me to be an advocate for masks? I'm going to be an advocate for masks. If it's going to, and you're going to tout science, I'm going to be an advocate for that. If you're going to follow the science, the science says a bandana doesn't fucking do shit. A science, you know, to sit there and say that, well, it impedes 3% or 2%. I mean, give me a break. That's the equivalent of nothing. I'm sorry. In my brain, 2 and 3% impediment, that's an equivalent of nothing. You might as well walk around with nothing over your face. So if you're going to
Since
make
I
it,
see,
so you've got this group of people that are, you know, the crusaders running around saying everybody's got to wear a mask. It's like, for fuck's sake. I mean, you know, does the material matter or what?
since I see that I have totally touched a nerve here, I be happy to know that I so totally agree with you. Not only I wish I had one.
You wait, whoa, whoa, you agree
Totally,
with me?
I totally agree with that. And you should have been at my home. Wait a minute. With the discussions I've had with my better half over that very subject, as to like the gators that you pulled up.
Yeah.
No way.
They don't do shit.
So you might. They don't. Let's just say I was not a happy camper. And let's also say that the mask that I actually wore, that I have, a couple of them have got little filters that actually slide into a little thing. I have 3 of them, and they have filters that you can move in and out. That anyway, and plus so I can wash them. But the filters you don't wash; they're throwaway. So
yeah,
at least I walk the talk.
I think the mask mandates, how they stand right now, total absurdity. Total absurdity.
At this point, I have to ask myself, is it a crap game that for a whole year I've managed to stay clean? You know, I've not had any problems. I did cut down my going to town, but not by that much. I still go out when I want to. Kept my mask, tried to stay away from people. So have I lucked out, or has the mask really helped? And I would also add to that, now that the older population, such as myself, has had access to the vaccine, and we're all becoming, I think almost half of Eugene, or more of I think it's even 70% of the elderly population here has been vaccinated. Now the spiking that we're seeing is happening to the younger people, you know, like your age.
I think the social distancing has had the biggest impact. The social distancing. I mean, if you're asking me based on what I've seen and what I've read, you know, what has helped reduce COVID number the most dramatically, I would say the social distancing. And I don't have a shit background in science or any of that stuff. I mean, I just read. Social distancing has had the greatest impact. And frankly, I'm not opposed to that. I did that prior to COVID. I think we should keep doing that. You know,
Okay,
stay the frick away from me. I'm good with that. But
Jacob, that's logical thinking right there. Do you know that?
yeah, but
Logically.
that's my point. It's like, you know, the social distancing and washing your hands and stuff. I mean, that has had the biggest, greatest impact. And I don't see, but that's also one of my rubs when it comes to things like, you know, mask mandates and stuff like that. It's like, you know, me and my son went to we went to a movie theater a while back during 2020, and we weren't allowed to buy popcorn after 9 o'clock.
Right. And
It's just dumb shit like that, where it's like, you know, you know, if you wanted to break it up in liberal and conservative, you're going to have liberals that are going to be like, oh yeah, we're doing something. And then you're going to, on the other side, where conservatives are going, this is freaking retarded. Why are we doing this? And that's where the conversation stops, because you've got these people that are touting, you know, they're praising Governor Brown for shutting off popcorn after 9 o'clock. It's like, what's the matter with you? Everybody should be up in arms over that and call bullshit. Everybody should be, because it is. It's like, why are we having that conversation?
Yeah. Are you seeing me okay?
Yeah, I can see you. Did I drop off?
You didn't drop off. Your voice kept going, but your face kind of split up. Multiple personalities.
That was probably a good thing.
But where you were going with that is, and we once again agree on that, the inconsistencies that I saw. You should have heard the conversations around my house with Terry and I both. You know, Terry's a little more conservative than I am, but not a lot. And as you know, I'm more conservative than a lot of people think I am.
I agree.
But that was the one thing for us. It was just ridiculous how some things applied to one way and didn't apply to the other. So looking back on it, it was crazy.
Yeah, it's like, what the heck, you know? And I think that's one of the reasons why. I think that's one of the reasons why so many people are frustrated and they're like, forget it. I'm not wearing a mask at all. I mean, I understand when somebody said, and somebody refuses to wear a mask. I got to be honest. I wear a mask simply because I don't want to be bothered. I don't want the argument. I don't want to be standing outside of Bimart arguing my right to go in and buy something. I mean, so I put on a mask because it's like, I'm not going to bother with it. I'm not going to argue with the manager. I'm not going to argue with one of the employees, you know? I mean, I will
Pick your
say this,
battles carefully.
huh?
Pick your battles carefully. There's always
Yeah,
an opportunity
it's a
to go
pick your
around.
battle. It's a pick your battles thing. It's like, I hate shopping anyway, and I don't want to be
Yeah,
inconvenienced one more thing than I have to. And so if I can avoid the conversation with putting something over my face and covering my face up, I'm in. It's like, forget it. But I mean, if
don't
somebody asks me, do you think, no, the moment I walk out the store, I take the mask off. I don't wear the mask anywhere else,
yeah, me
literally
too.
nowhere else.
Me too. Me
I,
too.
I, I
So,
take it
well,
off
so what,
and I tell people to stay the frick away from me, and I wash my hands and face.
there you go. I was going to say, well, so now we're getting on a good rant. This is another one I know we share, but I want to get it out there. What are we going to do about ammunition? I am so pissed.
Well, I mean, my thoughts on it. I mean, I think that they could meet demand if they wanted to. I think they could. I mean,
That's what. But you know what they're doing for people like me who I like the shotgun, that I've gotten into the sporting clay thing. So apparently what I'm hearing is because of the 20 gauge, there's not such a demand for 20 gauge. They're not producing it. So that totally screws me out of it.
well, they're doing, yeah,
Have you
well,
heard
like I
this?
said, I mean, you got what is the 17 caliber that's filled up on the shelves, and some of these oddball rounds that people
Oh
never
yeah,
really subscribe to, and so they're on the
28,
shelves. But I mean,
28 gauge.
it's they can't see. The gun debate is just another debate that's just infuriating, because it's been politicized, and it's not based on any statistics really, or facts. I mean, if I think I heard one statistic that the average home in the United States, and there's over 3 million people, or 300 million people in the United States. So it's like, the average home in
Yeah.
the United States has anywhere from 7 to 10 guns per home.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a lot per home. I mean, if you added it up, I mean, we have more guns, per capita in the United States than any other country on the planet. And so to sit there and look at gun crimes and gun deaths and stuff like that, I mean, it seems like a lot, but you look at the scale, it's like, no, the vast majority of stuff that's going down is from criminal activity. And the actual law-abiding gun owners are not contributing to those numbers at all. And
Right.
and so why are we passing legislations that punish law-abiding gun owners? Why are we doing that? I mean, that's just insane to me. Why are we inhibiting, the manufacturing of ammo, target rounds? I mean, why can't we buy target rounds? I mean, you like to go out and shoot shotgun shells. Why isn't there just a mass supply of target rounds out there that you can go get? I mean, if you want to scale back on lead shot, okay, but what about the target round? Why can't you do that? I mean, so I mean, I mean, it's stuff like that frustrates me. And I think, like I said, it's been politicized, and you have these different parties that are using these different events to garner votes and press agendas. And I don't think that, I mean, last I heard, we're looking at 4 to 5 years before ammo gets back on the shelves on a routine basis.
Oh, had not heard that. Oh, that's really, I think both you and Terry, I know Terry reloads his own, but even he can't get, he was looking at, for the shotgun, I think it was wads, primers. He can't get the primers.
Primers.
And so even he's going to be.
Yeah. I mean, you see, and that's what they've done. See, we ran out of ammo, so everybody gravitated towards, making your own. And I've got numerous friends that have reloaders and stuff like that, and then they've offered to make me ammo, and they've offered to let me use their reloaders. And I think I told you I bought. Well, I'm not going to tell you what I got, but
I know how much it costs. Don't worry.
I don't advertise, but I mean, the bottom line is, I got some stuff. I'm not advertising what I have or what I don't have, but
yeah, be careful. I know I don't either.
Yeah, but I mean, the bottom line is I got some stuff, and the reloading equipment and supplies are also running at a loss now. You have people that are having trouble getting primers, they're having trouble getting powder. I have a friend of mine that has shown me how to pour my own bullets. He's like,
a bullet mold, eh?
Get some lead, and this is how you do it. And it's a pretty easy process, and I've learned the whole process. I can make a bullet from start to finish, but I mean, it's just frustrating to me because you have these ridiculous laws. I mean, you have Biden standing up saying, I don't know why anybody needs a 20-round clip. I mean, he can't even say it right. I mean, it's like, stuff like that. It's just frustrating to me. And I don't understand why more people, I think that there are quite a few people, but I mean, if once again, if I was going to break it up into left and right, I don't understand why the left can't grasp the concept, when it comes to gun ownership and it comes to, statistics in terms of crime rates and stuff like that. I don't understand their, it's like a misdirected outrage, and they're directing their outrage towards, legal gun owners, and it should be directed toward, they should be advocating for laws that affect criminal activity and not legal gun owners.
Well, I see it just even a little farther than that. I see it. How did we do this when you were in high school? I remember kids out in the parking lot, and they had rifles in the back of their pickup trucks, for heaven's sakes. When did all this start? What happened that made all these mass shootings now? What happened?
Well,
we didn't have that yet.
I mean, if you really want to, I mean, my opinion, it came with the slow destruction of the family unit. I mean, back in my day, and actually way before my day, because in my day all that stuff was coming down. But back in my day, I mean, the family unit consisted of mom, dad, kids, dog, and a house.
I agree with you.
You agree with me because I mean, the same thing.
But be careful because you're headed in a direction I'd love to see you go. Keep going.
But the bottom line is, I mean, what we have now is we have a lot of single parent households. Dad's not in the picture
Sure.
for the most part. And like I said, I mean, that goes back to what I talked about before in terms of, listen, we know what a family unit should look like, what functions well. It's functioned well for thousands of years, since the beginning of time, and nobody's saying that because you don't have that as your family unit, you should feel less. But if you're going to advocate for a blueprint of how things should go, that's probably a pretty good blueprint to pick. And why are we still arguing about that? This is just dumb. It's just dumb. And what's dumb about it is you have single mothers suffering and you have kids suffering because we can't simply say, hey, a man and a woman raising two kids together is what works. You can't say that.
You can say, I think basically it doesn't mean another way can't work, I guess is where I'm going with that. But basically that's pretty much the norm, and that's where we are. But so when do you think families started falling apart? Because I know when I think it did. That's right.
If there was one specific decade in the
Yes.
history of time that I had the ability to snap my fingers and erase, it would be the 60s.
Uh, okay.
I would eliminate
I,
the 60s in a heartbeat.
I agree with a piece of that, only a small piece of that.
Well, I would prefer you not to agree, and I want you to tell me why.
Oh, I will, because I was a child of the 60s. Now, I came from a family that would be considered what you just described, two-parent household, father worked, mother stayed home, had a
Right.
brother. We had two cars, we had vacations, one income. Here's where I'm going to start.
Can I stop you there for a minute?
Sure.
Okay. You were a child in the 60s. You weren't making babies and getting involved in relationships in the 60s.
Oh, yes, I was.
Those you said you were a child in the 60s.
Oh, well, no, I mean, I came of age in the 60s. That's what I mean by a child of the
Okay.
60s.
Okay.
I was a child.
Okay. Well, I'm glad I stopped you and clarified. Okay.
Okay, I was actually a child of the 50s then, if you want to go like that.
Okay.
No, but so I had the traditional family life with the traditional family values, let's call them that. No religion, but that's neither here nor there. I don't want to get into that part because that we'll never agree on that. But anyway, had that, and then I got married. I was married in 1967, had a baby in 1968, 17 years old, still married 53 years later.
Yeah.
What changed was that we noticed was the 1980s came along. So I can see, so with the promiscuity, supposedly, I guess you'd call it that, and the more open freedom of the 60s. I never was part of that. That I was a basically responsible human young mother who did what our mothers before us had done, kept that role going. Come the 80s, though, Terry and we had just started getting ahead a little bit in life. We got our first sailboat and had a little house, and we were just starting to come of, get somewhere. And then we started having, are you ready? Trickle down voodoo economics.
God.
And we have gone to hell since.
Oh my! Trickle down economics has nothing to do with what turned out in terms of the family unit. Liberalism is the result of what took place in the family unit.
Women, okay, so here's.
Listen, hold on a minute. Okay, this right here is a cell phone, right? This right here is an example of trickle down economics. This is an example. Now, I don't know. This is an example of success for trickle down economics. Now, I don't know how much, economics you've studied, and I have no idea, but the whole concept of trickle down economics goes above and beyond wage. So when you say trickle down economics, to me, it doesn't equate to a monetary wage.
Well, you
it's
certainly use a
than
monetary wage to buy, that might be, but it's your wage that pays your house rent, buying food, groceries, cars, you name it. That wage is real.
Yeah, that wage is that wage is real. But my point is, when you say trickle down economics, most people talk about that, they equate it to wage, and to somebody who has read about economics, or and I'm not an economics guru by any means, but if you were to call up an economist and you were to say, explain to me trickle down economics, it would not begin and end with wage. It would be a much broader subject than that. And this right here, the fact that we have so many people, when I went to DACA for 2 weeks, probably 10 years ago, everybody on a bicycle had a cell phone. Right. Everybody on a bicycle had a cell phone. And that is an example of a life improvement based on trickle down economics.
Okay. And I want to be careful. I don't want to get too off topic here, but perhaps I should change my wording then to unregulated capitalism.
Unregulated capitalism. Okay. Once again, I just watched a debate between I think his name is Zygek and
You asked for it.
Jordan Peterson, and the debate was about Marxism and happiness. And in terms of economic systems, there is no other system on the planet that has raised more poor people out of poverty than capitalism. So think about that. Think about that.
I'm trying to equate that to the disparity of the wage gap we have right now in this country.
Well, see, I'm not going to argue that we don't have a disparity in terms of wage. I mean, you know, there's obviously more. There's obviously a more, or kind of like Karl Marx described a bourgeoisie, or however you say it. I mean, there is an upper class, and there's a middle class, and there's a lower class, and the middle class has gotten smaller. I'm not going to argue that, okay. but I would argue, because that's evident. I mean, you can see that, but I would argue that in terms of economic systems and what's available on our planet today, the capitalism economic system by far exceeds every other system we have available in terms of creating that equality. So here you have these people on the left, you know, and no offense to you personally, but I mean, you have these group of people on the left that literally, they lack the knowledge when it comes to economics, and they don't understand exactly what's available out there. And so they denounce and they argue against capitalism. I mean, you go to an economist is going to look at you and scratch his head and go, what the hell are you talking about? There is nothing out there right now that is available that lifts more people. If you care about poor people, if you want there to be less poor people, if you want to pull poor people out of poverty, you better be a capitalist advocate. You better advocate for capitalism, because that's what raises poor people out of poverty. And that is fact. It's fact. It's you believe in science. It's economic science fact.
It's more complicated than that.
It's more complicated because you want to know what erodes at capitalism. We don't have a true capitalist society. You know that, right?
Pretty much.
We don't. We don't.
I get that.
We don't have
democratic
a true capitalist
socialism
society.
is part of it.
The Adam Smith, when he talked about the invisible hand, okay, that's only seen occasionally in our economic system. What we have is we have government intervention, we have government oversight, we have government control that is constantly manipulating and messing with a true economic or true capitalist economic system. We have that a lot. And so every time you have this group of people that are without, the withouts, okay, and they scream the loudest, you have these politicians come in and they promise things to these people instead of actually doing things that are benefiting them, that will benefit them in the long run, instead of things that will actually contribute to growth and personal development and actually give them the ability to get out on their own. They provide these different services and these different government subsidies and blah, blah, blah. And that erodes at the capitalist system. So you have the capitalist system that tries to compensate. There's different countries on the planet. I'm not going to name them, but they do a lot in terms of what they give their populace. They do a lot in what they give their populace. And the capitalist system that they have over there is able to afford a lot of what is provided to their populace. But in the same breath, you have this entire population that doesn't understand what's going on. And so when housing prices go through the roof, they sit there dumbfounded and they complain. And it's like, what are you complaining about? You have all these things provided by the capitalist system, and you're arguing and you're getting frustrated when the system has to increase prices on one end to compensate what's being sucked out the back end. It's like, what part of this don't you understand? And it totally comes from economic ignorance. I mean, you have a lot of people that don't understand what's involved. They just don't.
I love that explanation because
I didn't mean to rant, but when it comes to stuff like this, it's like, it's
no,
really frustrating because it's like, holy shit, you know, I mean, some of this stuff is not, I mean, if this was taught in schools, you know, people would not be so manipulated by politicians that were volunteering things simply to get votes. And that's what's taking place. And so you sit there and you have these people that are arguing, saying that capitalism's evil, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, are you freaking kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Capitalism is not evil. Let's make sure you understand that with me right now.
Okay.
That's not what I'm saying at all. But the rampant capitalism that we have going now, so is absolutely obscene. And so let me ask you a question on that. I keep wondering, and you know, I don't despise Walmart like I used to. You know, I ended up going there for some prescriptions, not like I used to, because they have modified some. I have to give them some credit. They have tried to come on board somewhat. So we could talk, maybe we could talk about Amazon. I'm trying to think of the big box companies with the obscene CEO wages. Their money, the money they make is so obscenely out of proportion to their lowest employee. Why is it that we do not have some kind of a tie in a wage, like a percentage? So whatever the profit is of the company, the worker, because that guy's Jeff Bezos is not going to have that company.
Can I just throw out, so you know that there's certain things that certain things based on different fields that are considered truisms. You've heard of that, right? The word truism.
I have heard of it, but go ahead.
Certain fields, when you say certain things, they'll say that's a truism of this, and it's a truism is something that is based on some sort of, you know, history or fact or statistic or something. It's a truism. It happens on a routine, and it's you could almost bet against it every single time. Okay, so in economics, in the world of economics, a truism is price controls. Okay, price controls increase inflation and costs.
Okay.
Price controls increase inflation and costs. So if housing prices are going through the roof and somebody says, oh, these homeowners are just making too much money on the sale of their house, we should limit their profits to 100,000 or 200,000, that's a price control. If you have a CEO that's making X amount of dollars in terms of their wage, and you say these CEOs are making way too much money for what they do, blah, 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 that's a price control. Anytime you impose a price control, whether it be on a product, a good, a service, anything along those lines, you are going to increase inflation and overall costs. Who suffers from that? Poor people.
No, stop. Let me, can I interrupt?
Sure.
That's not what I'm saying at all. That's not anything close to what I'm saying.
Okay, what are you
saying?
saying?
I don't want the CEO not to make his millions and billions. I want the guy that's working for him to have a percentage of that up to a point, and then you can cap it, and then the guy can have 300% more or whatever. I don't care.
So
but it's
so
grotesque.
You're not arguing necessarily for a price control or a wage control on what CEOs can make, but you're advocating for a living wage.
I'm advocating for, I'm advocating, it might be more than a living wage. It could be, you know, the guy could be, so if you got Jeff Bezos.
You're not advocating for a living wage.
$1 million, the guy might make $1 million, you know?
So you're not advocating for a living wage. A living wage for employees.
I'm advocating for a living wage or more, whatever that turns out to be. And this, I'm not talking about small mom and pop stores. I'm not talking about small business. I'm talking about the big bucks, where the big bucks are coming from. We know who we're talking about. GM, all the insurance, you know who we got, Prudential, all the guys that are making.
What if we took a different approach? What if we took the approach that instead of relying on your place of employment to provide the things that you want and need in your life, what if we said it's going to be your responsibility to decide where you live, what you eat, what you drive, what clothes you wear, And so based on what your desires are, your personal desires are, you're going to have to earn that wage or create that income to provide the level of living that you want to live at. So if you want to be in a million, you want to live in a millionaire thing, you got to do stuff to become a millionaire. And if you want to live in an apartment and simply have your bills paid, you have to do that. But we took it a step further and we said, number one, okay, it's not your employer's responsibility to provide those things for you. It's your responsibility. But number two, we're going to show you how to do that. We're going to show you what jobs you need to apply for, the wages that need to be there for the jobs, or we're going to show you how to start a business to supplement your income to get you to the level of living, the standard of living that you want to live at. What if we actually did that for people instead of simply saying, throwing out an arbitrary number like $15 an hour and saying $15 an hour is a living wage for people? Because I don't know about you, but I don't want to live on $15 an hour.
No, it's not a living wage as far as I'm concerned.
Right. It doesn't meet the standard of living of where I want to live at. But you're going to have, I think if we did it that way, I think we'd have more people that don't necessarily want to live in a mansion, and they'd be happy with, living in a trailer on an acre property. And I think that we should show them how to do that.
See, and I don't necessarily see anything wrong with that, but you're making that a very small scope. I'm suggesting that, and I'm using Amazon as an example. What is Jeff Bezos worth? How many billions of dollars? So if his employees, and you have to admit that his operation is not going to run without employees, right? They make or break him. He cannot. He's been the one with the business. I give him credit. He's the one that should be making the profit. But if you tied in a percentage of, he makes billions of dollars, say 10%, and I don't know how this would actually work out, but you could have an employee actually making $1 million perhaps. It doesn't have to be finite. It doesn't have to have a limit to it.
Leta, we gave a I think under Trump, what was it, a $2 million or $1 million stimulus the very first time? What was it? It was the largest at the time when Trump was president. They gave I think it was like a $1 trillion or $2 trillion stimulus, and it was the largest stimulus package ever passed. Remember that?
I do.
Okay, so when that passed, one of the questions that a lot of people asked is, there's a little over 325, 330 million people in the United States. Why didn't Trump just give everybody $1 million?
I remember hearing that argument.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, you could literally, every single person in the United States could have stroked him a check for $1 million and been done with that. What happens when you do that?
You're talking about inflation and cost of living, you mean? Or
no, I'm talking about the ability to go buy a mocha disappears. Nobody who works at Starbucks after they get $1 million is going to show up to work the next day. If you want to tank the economy, tomorrow, give everybody $1 million, and you won't be able to get gas. You're not going to get maintenance on any machines. Lights aren't going to turn on. Floors aren't going to get mopped. It's done tomorrow.
But I'm still not suggesting that as the alternative. I'm just suggesting a part of the profit. I think it's the Winco. Is it Winco? Does that with its employees? They profit share. They get. Sure. It's something like that. They get. In other words, there's motivation for them to come to work.
Don't get me started on that, because that I've spent a few years doing investments, right?
Yeah, I do know that, and I would give you.
Don't get me started on profit sharing and how that works. With everything,
well then listen.
An asset of the corporation, and how the best thing people can do. I mean, I'm not giving it an advice, but I know if I had a profit sharing account, I would get it out of that company as fast as I possibly could.
Well, but it's not okay, and you're right, but it doesn't always have to be about the money either. Hey, listen, buddy, I'm gonna have to. I want to leave on a place that you don't think I'm bugging out on you, because I don't want to talk.
You're fine.
I could go on and on here, but to stay married 53 years. I promised my husband I help him go wash the car, and I'm way late. So
no, it's good. No worries.
I'll tell you what, we can bookmark this.
We'll
bookmark
wrap it
this
up,
and
but I
come
do
back.
appreciate the fact that we actually covered quite a few topics.
We did, and
And,
I more than I had planned on doing. So
and you actually agree more with me than you let on online.
that's not true. I think
Oh,
I
don't
don't think
pick
so.
now is the time to argue, Leta. You
No,
can say
I don't think so. I think there's just more topics that we could consider. But I will leave you with this thought. Think how hard it must be for me to be a liberal with conservative tendencies, especially with the gun control issue.
Oh, I
Because
know. Yeah, you get hammered.
it's really hard for me to when a can how do I pick a candidate, because it's either for or against. All the things that are dear to my heart are one side or the other, and it's like I have to give up something.
Well, the
It's
candidates
really
were
hard.
rough for a few years, so I mean, we both know that.
Yeah.
All
So
right. Well, thanks chatting with me. For anybody
all right,
who
Jacob.
watched and been able to watch through this, I appreciate it. Visit the web blog, larsonsblog.com, and Leta Sellers. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, Jacob. We'll see you soon, I hope. Okay, bye-bye.